It's time for Dr. Laura. I swear she's not gonna bore ya. For sexy advice, you don't have to think twice. Just say you're asking for a friend.
This month, we're going to discuss 5 questions you probably haven't asked your partner, and you probably should. Now, these are not questions I would advise asking on a first date, but as you're starting to get more serious, these are some things you want to know about the person you're interested in. Question number 1. How does your partner give and receive love? A really popular theory on this topic comes from the book, The 5 Love Languages. Basically, it breaks down to the fact that people don't express or receive love in the same way. So while you may give and receive love by touch, that may be something that they completely disconnect from love, and they give and receive love through words. And so sometimes what happens is we are giving love the way that we would want to receive it, and the other person doesn't feel it because their way of giving and expressing love is very different than ours. By simply being able to sit down and identify, this is how I express and give love, this is how you express and give love, you can understand where each other's coming from and accommodate both of those needs. Question number 2. What kind of erotica do they consume? So that can be things that are written, and that can be things that are visual. Another way of phrasing this is, what kind of porn do you watch? So you might think, well, why would that be different? Because a lot of times people's real deep down nitty-gritty desires are hidden under layers of what they think that other people will accept from them. So they may consume erotica that is a certain genre or certain things that they fantasize about, but they have a hard time communicating that wish or desire in a relationship. So by asking somebody, what turns you on? What do you watch? What do you read? That's erotic. That will help you bridge that gap and understand how to communicate better in the bedroom. Question number 3. What are your daily and weekly goals? Break it down much farther, right? Because if somebody doesn't have goals on a daily and weekly and monthly basis that's leading them to those bigger 5-10-year goals, then you're going to have a hard time creating symmetry with where you're going in your relationship, and if you both have common goals and objectives for your lives. So asking somebody, what are you working on right now? What are you trying to get done this week? Even in the next 6 months, where do you want to be? Is a lot easier to answer and more realistic to analyze. Question number 4. How do they communicate when they're upset? So when you're in a good mood, before this person has driven you crazy or you've driven them mad, is a really good time to ask, when you get upset, how do you handle it? And what kind of communication do you use or would you like to receive? So a lot of times problems come up because somebody either will lash out, like they have explosive feelings when they're upset, or they implode, they sink in, they shut down, and they don't communicate. And both of those are impossible to work with, honestly. That's really something that they would need to do with a therapist long term. But what you can do is kind of create a game plan and say, if you are upset, let's talk about what we'll do. So, for example, you could say, if you're upset, I need you to identify that you are upset, right? How many times have you been in a relationship where you say to someone, something bothering you? And they're like, it's fine. It's not fine, right? And so you don't want to do that. You want to say, I'm picking up that you are upset, and I need you to identify that feeling and as much as possible where it's coming from. If you can't identify it right now, let's take some space until you can. So try not to talk it out at that moment, or even maybe be around each other at that exact moment so that you have time to identify those feelings. And then you want to ask, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to take more space? Do you need an hour, a day? Do you need us to sit down and have a conversation? Do you want to have a little more space and maybe talk it out on the phone first? So all of these things are different options. There's not one that you have to choose, but you want to have a plan in place and then hold each other accountable to it, right? So if you have the best plan in place, but one of you isn't following through and you're shutting down or you're lashing out at each other, then that's not going to work. And that's when you want to discuss what you already agreed to and see if you can work on it better in the future. Question number 5. Do you have a common end goal? So this is different than saying, again, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you want to have 5 kids? Do you want to have no kids and live in the jungle? What's more specific and more important is where are you ultimately heading? And that looks more at the specifics of your values rather than check marks that you can cross off. This would look like, where do you want to be financially? What does financial security look like to you? Where do you want to be in your career? How many hours a week do you want to eventually be working? What kind of time do you want to have with your family, with your friends? What kind of habits do you want to break? And what kind of habits do you want to gain? All of these things are important to understand about each other because ultimately, if you are going towards that same common goal, you will continue to match up. Most of the problems that happen over time come up when people don't have a common end goal. So I hope that was all wonderfully helpful. I'm fascinated to see what your responses are, so leave them in the comments below. Tell me, did you ask these questions? What was the result? Did you learn things that you didn't know before? Send in new questions. And remember, you're asking for a friend. Cheers, queers!
Like this video? Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Yeah, that one there. To get more asking for a friend each and every month. Email your queer sex questions anonymously to info@spectrumsouth.com. And don't worry, we know. You're just asking for a friend. Cheers, queers!